I would like to welcome everyone who will be in participation for the Board of Naturopathic Medicine meeting. Today's date is Friday, April 19th. Our executive officer, Christopher Fernandez, will now provide an introduction to today's meeting.
Thank you, Chair. We will first watch a brief video that will begin the process of introducing how to participate in this current meeting.
Welcome to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
When the meeting begins momentarily, the chair will take a roll call, explain any specific rules for this particular board, and then move to public comment. The name of the board member will appear on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. For instance, this is board member Y, and this is board member E. Public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. You can indicate that you are ready to testify by clicking on the Raise Hand button being circled by the mouse on your screen now. At the appropriate time, the board will recognize you to speak and ask you to unmute your mic as shown here. Again, public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. Public attendees will not be able to unmute their microphone until recognized by the board. Public attendees who are recognized to testify will be asked to identify themselves by name and their affiliated organization if applicable. Please mute your microphone when you are finished speaking as a courtesy to others and members of the board. Public attendees will not be able to unmute themselves after the testimony is completed unless recognized again after raising their hand. At some point during the meeting, the board may choose to move into executive session. When the board moves into executive session, the board members' microphones and video feeds will be turned off, and a similar screen as you see now will be displayed. When the board returns from executive session, their microphones will be turned on as well as their video cameras.
Welcome again to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
At this time, the chair will call the meeting to order and take a roll call, as well as explain any additional rules that may be specific to this board.
I'd like to now.
Sorry.
My apologies. You go ahead, Christopher. Sorry.
No worries. All right, so internet access. To view the meeting and provide live oral testimony, please use the link at the top of the agenda. You will be asked to enter your name. The board requests that you enter your full name, but you may use a pseudonym or other identifier if you wish to remain anonymous. You will also be asked for an email address. You may fill in this field with any entry and email format, for example, janedoe@gmail.com. Your microphone will be automatically muted. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about the agenda item. The chairperson will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking. Phone access. If you cannot get internet access, you may get audio-only access by calling the phone number listed at the top of the agenda. Upon dialing the number, you will be prompted to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed at the top of the agenda. After entering the meeting ID, you will be asked to either enter your panelist number or wait to be admitted into the meeting. You will not have a panelist number, so please wait until you are admitted into the meeting. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 5 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If connection to the meeting is lost for more than 30 minutes, the meeting will be continued on a specific date and time. This information can be found on the board's website. Instructions to attend the State of Hawaii virtual board meetings may be found online at cca.hawaii.gov PVL files 2020-08 State of Hawaii Virtual Board Attendees Instructions. Thank you.
Excellent. Well done. I would now like to take a roll call in order to call our meeting together, assuring a quorum. I'd like to start with Dr. Kristen Coles. If you are present, please state present or here. Dr. Kristen Coles.
Hi, present.
Dr. Corinne DeSoto.
I am present.
Yippee! Welcome. And Miss Joy Kimura.
Present.
Yay! Okay, and Dr. David Kern, I am as well present.
Sorry, Chair. Also, could we have each individual member state that they are present and alone at their place?
Yes, of course. So again, as requested, if you could just identify again being present and that whether you are alone or are with any other groups of people, please make note. Okay, Dr. Kristen Coles.
I'm present and I'm alone.
Dr. Corinne DeSoto.
I am present and I am alone. Also, I apologize that I was having connectivity issues earlier, so I'm just putting that out there in case I get cut off again at some point. I'll try to rejoin.
Yeah. Miss Joy Kimura.
I'm present and alone. Thank you.
And I, Chair Dr. David Kern, am present and I am alone. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Our first order of business will be approving the minutes of our last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes?
This is Dr. Coles. There's an abbreviation that's being used that is attributed to something I said in discussion of the last minutes, where the abbreviation NP is being used in the meeting minutes. But I didn't say that abbreviation. So I think we need to go back and listen to what was actually the term that was actually used and write that out instead of making an abbreviation. Because NP I think is confusing when it's read in that paragraph, because it's not describing what we were, as an abbreviation, what we were trying to, or what I was trying to say.
So what Dr. Coles again is referring to is page 5 at the bottom of the notes from the last meeting. The term naturopathic practitioner was used in discussion and it became abbreviated to NP, and then subsequent to that comment, it was used again, NP, and used in association to the comments that Dr. Coles contributed. However, the term NP is not actually used by naturopathic doctors. Any reference to us as doctors, physicians, practitioners is simply referred to as ND if we're going to abbreviate it. So that should be corrected in those notes.
So on page 6, second paragraph, when it says NP, it should say naturopathic physician or practitioner.
No, you can use the term naturopathic physician. I think what Dr. Coles was pointing out is if naturopathic physician is used, it's spelled out. It's not abbreviated NP. There is no NP abbreviation for anything naturopathic.
Okay.
No practitioner, doctor, physician as a naturopath is referred to as an NP.
Okay,
And I think the point that I was getting across is that the public, they may use the term ND, which is our licensed naturopathic doctor. The public may use the term ND saying about someone who doesn't hold that license. They may actually say, I go see my ND for such and such, but they're calling someone who is not a naturopathic doctor our license because they have been improperly informed or made to believe that these practitioners hold a license that is our license as a naturopathic doctor that those practitioners do not in fact hold. The discussion was around practitioners who may use the term naturopathic something, but they don't hold a doctorate in naturopathic medicine, but they may use the term to the public naturopathic XYZ.
Yeah.
The public then believes, or they will come and they will see me and they will say, I see my ND so-and-so. And then I say that person is not an ND, but the public believes because they use the term naturopathic that they now automatically are a naturopathic doctor. And that's the crux of the conversation we were having, is that when anyone can use the term naturopathic, the public, which is, what we're here to sort of, help inform and protect with what we do as naturopathic doctors, the public automatically assumes the term naturopathic automatically means a naturopathic doctor.
okay.
So I think in other words, someone who is going to a non-accredited college to study theoretically naturopathic medicine, if they're coming out and believing that they can call themselves an NP, naturopathic practitioner, that does not excuse them from inappropriately using a term because the public assumes it's the equivalent to naturopathic doctor.
Right. Okay, so on the minutes, it should state instead, I go to my ND for that, referring to a licensed naturopathic physician. And the point you were trying to make isn't captured by that last sentence. This seems to be a public safety issue if it confuses the public. It should just add a little bit more information, I think is what you're saying, Dr. Coles, that this seems to be a public safety issue if it confuses the public when a non-licensed individual uses the same term.
Right. The public assumes
Similar
they will
term.
come and say, I see an ND, but they're not seeing an ND, but they think they are.
Okay. All right. Got it.
Thank you.
Similarly, and maybe Christopher, you could identify that we were speaking earlier. You had made a comment in speaking to the identifications of naturopathic doctors under our statutes, and you had suggested that naturopathic wasn't specifically protected as a term under our statutes.
Yeah.
That's not
My suggestion is for that substantive conversation to happen in the agenda item further down. Right now,
Okay.
we're minutes. So
the only concern I have is in the minutes, if the minutes are read, the implication is that the term naturopathic is not a protected term. And it in fact is a protected term. Even if the word itself is not specifically stated in the statute.
yeah, of course. I can pull my statement out.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I'd appreciate that because again, if somebody in an uncertified college is looking at ways to get around how they refer to themselves, they may read those notes and presume that they can use the term naturopathic because it's not protected based on what was stated in the notes.
Yes, what I will do is I will remove my statement and then I will combine the two for statements made by Vice Chair Coles.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Nothing personal, by the way. Um, any other corrections?
Yes,
or
sorry.
Please, please. That's all right.
This is Dr. DeSoto. If we're discussing that statement, Dr. Kearns, that you're saying where it seems that naturopathic is not protected, there is a statement in the minutes where it says that I stated that naturopathic does not seem protected. Is that what you were referring to, or is there another statement about that too?
It was your statement that then I think Christopher commented on.
Okay.
It's a little bit further down, but yeah. So Dr. DeSoto, I hear your concern. So I can strike Dr. DeSoto's comment as well.
I mean, I guess I don't mind it being a part of the conversation. I think it was just a clarification of like, is naturopathic in fact a protected term? And if it is, then maybe we should make it clear in the minutes that it is a protected term.
And it could also happen at this meeting as well. There was no position or informal opinion made by the board that would say that that is truth. Again, I'm only going to state in the minutes what I stated, which was that that term by itself is not within the statutes. I should probably have not used the word protected term, but at least that by itself in parentheses or in quotations is not going to be in the statutes. Now, the board's discussion this meeting probably will continue on from that. But I can remove that from the meeting minutes if that is the board's wish.
Yes, I believe so. If there's
Okay.
any, yeah, I think too, the correct answer is both and. So the term specifically is not stated in the statute. But when you read the statute and it does speak to all the terminology, then the last sentence indicates that any term that could be construed or related to the terms that are listed are also prohibited. So again, naturopathic is close enough to all the other terms that are listed in the statute that it would inherently be included, even if it in fact is not currently specifically stated in the statute. So if when we get to that, the listing that you had provided as Christopher, of all the state terminology, at the bottom, Hawaii, our statute as it's read out, again, it identifies each term at the end of that sentence of which it said, and essentially any other term that can be related to or associated with the terms listed is also prohibited. So that to me would be pretty obviously the term naturopathic. So anyway, we'll get to that. But yes, I think if that could be excluded, as you had already stated, I think that would be better. Your sentence, your input. Okay. Any other changes, corrections, grammatical updates? No. Okay. Is there a motion then to accept the minutes, prior minutes, as they have been corrected, please?
This is Dr. Coles. I motion.
And is there a second to the motion, please?
This is Dr. DeSoto. I'm second.
We'll take a vote again. All those in favor, Dr. Coles,
Yes.
Dr. DeSoto,
Yes.
and Ms. Joy,
Yes.
and Dr. Kern votes in the affirmative. Okay. Moving on to item number 3 in the agenda, licensure, reciprocity, and professional educational organizations. Christopher, would you like to initiate this conversation on item number 3?
Yeah,
Please.
sure. Of course. All right, so as you had brought up during the meeting minutes review, the board can continue its conversation about the way I wrote it this way because this title conversation is tied into all these other parts. And so I thought it best just to keep it that way. The item number B is added on there just because right now currently the licensee pool is a 100% CE submission. Part of the reason why naturopathic physicians submit hard copy renewals is because of the CE requirement and the submission of all peoples. So all licensees, that is. One way of getting an audit, which would be like something, it could be 10%, 15, 20, is to, what that would do is allow for an online submission for renewals and such. Any of the boards or programs who have a 100% CE submission does the hard copy. So I thought I'd offer that out to the board to consider and think about. The third is a question that I received.
Can I ask a question on that point?
Yeah, sure.
If it is the board's desire to shift that, what's the procedure? How do we go about that? Or are we going to come back to that?
We can come back to it, or I could just explain real quick. In order to get a CE audit on the books for naturopath, it would require a statutory change, more than likely. At least that would be the cleanest, clearest way to indicate that the board will be doing a 10% audit. And the way it would work would be nothing different than it is now. The only difference is all you have to do as a licensee is submit your renewal with your fee. Also, completing some affidavit questions such as, have you been convicted of any crimes? Have you had any disciplinary action? Have you, et cetera? Have you completed the CE? And then later on, probably like in a couple months later, or a month later, those who are pulled by a random audit would get a letter stating you need to now submit your CE. So that's how it would look, but that would all be based off the cleanest way, which would be a statutory change. But there are chances that maybe next year we could possibly see if we can put in a request for an admin bill for that change, since it would administratively reduce the burdens here in office, as well as for, in some sense, licensees.
Just as a clarification, and maybe if for purposes of the notes and for some of maybe the newer members on the board, maybe you could just take a second, Christopher, to clarify the distinction between a statutory change and an admin bill.
Okay, yeah, sure. So with regard to that, a statutory change would require that a legislative bill be introduced by a legislator on behalf of a party at the legislature, and then go through the entire process from January to May 5th of being vetted is really what it is, to ensure that this is what the state wants, and then getting codified into law. The admin rules process for amending them is a similar but different process. It is primarily begun here at board meetings, at which point, after certain steps have been completed, other parties are involved, including the AG's office, also the Small Business Commission as well. There are some other public meetings that will have to happen so that it is publicly, so that the amendments are publicly vetted and the public has a chance to provide comments on them. So it is a very extensive process, because that is just the process of getting the rules amended and but as far as creating and drafting the rules, that's something that the board would have to do prior to submitting the request for the amendment. So it just depends. The more extensive the changes, the longer the process can be. For example, the admin bill process that was referred to at the last meeting, I believe probably took about 3 years. I'm guessing, but that I don't know how far in advance language was being drafted or, like it was being worked on. So it could have been longer. But those are the two processes. So one would be for the statutes and then one would be for the administrative rules. For the administrative rules, they are dependent on what is put in the statutes. So if there is no authority in the statute that would generate rules, then the rules wouldn't go anywhere, or you couldn't create rules for certain things. For example, in the parenteral therapy, the statutes refer to rulemaking for the board. And that's what you see in the administrative rules, is you see all the requirements for not only for the licensees, but also for the non-school course providers, all in the rules. And that was because the statutes provided that authority. I hope that gives you a little bit of background between those two processes. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Well, it certainly seems in the current legislative climate, the statutory change going through the production of a bill introduced by a legislature could be a painful process. Just saying. It seems like at least obviously this year and probably into the next couple of years, it seems the legislature has, and Joy would know much better than I for sure, but there seems like there's a real priority on financial issues, certainly in relationship to the fire and all the ramifications. So, I'm not sure how valued our bill would be, that it would, be a part of the process.
Oh, may I make a comment? This
Please.
Joy. So I wanted to say that if you were to go through the administrative rules process, it's actually quite cumbersome. You would have to also hold a series of public hearings, and I think we would be under the purview of, I haven't researched this, but probably the Department of Health. So it may be quicker and faster and easier to do it by introducing the bill and changing the statute. Now, if you were to do that, it's actually not very difficult because it wouldn't cost any money. It doesn't have to do anything with the budget. However, you would need someone to actively advocate and to, push it through. So that would be the most important thing. You would have to have people advocating for that bill.
And Joy or Christopher, is that something that potentially could be generated through the board, or would that be more appropriately generated through the state association?
If typically an administrative bill is something that is introduced by the governor on behalf of his department, because the bills represent ways of addressing administrative issues. So if it's substantive content, like you want to change associations that are within the chapter, or if you want to change the requirements for licensure, that would be something that the association should definitely probably get in on and get those introduced. But if it's something like, say, having to do with the submission of applications or CE audit, there could be grounds for an argument. That's the justification of an admin bill, because that's what it's doing, is it's addressing an issue with how to basically facilitate licensure. So we have to be very careful about, obviously how something's written, because if it comes across as professional development, then it's not going to be an admin bill. So that's something that we can continue to discuss. Now, as far as the CE audit and the reason for an bill, I think there could be grounds and argument for that it's an admin bill, which mean there's possibility the board could request that the department submit on its behalf to the governor. So that is something that we can still tease out. We still have some time. We can figure that out. I can ask around also in the office.
And is that what we're discussing? Is that distinguished from the effort we've attempted this last year to expand on the CE options that we tried to get through the legislature?
Yeah, I believe that we submitted a request for an admin bill regarding the CE section. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I got the response from the department stating that they felt it was more of a professional development bill and didn't include it in the admin bill. So it could have been just the way it was worded. It could be a little bit more justification. I mean, it's not just a given that people's requests get accepted. It still goes through an internal vetting. So yeah, I mean, again, I would still have to continue to research on that. It really just matters about the language, what the purpose is and things like that. And then also, you may have brought it up, Dr. Kern, the climate.
Yes. All right. Any other questions? That was well done. Thank you for that, Christopher and Joy, for your input. Much appreciated. You want to continue, Christopher, to item C?
Okay. Was the board going to discuss A? Sorry, I'm just asking generally. With regard to protected terms and such.
Item A is basically a continuation of the discussion we were just having about the minutes, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should discuss A.
Okay. Maybe we should start there, so that we can keep the agenda in as much order as possible. But I will state that C was generated from a question from I believe a pharmacy. So I think it's a fairly clear cut question or answer, but if we can start with A, because we took B out of order, and then go down the line.
C can be answered real quickly. We can go to A, but C is very clear, no argument. One does not need a minor office procedure privilege to have parenteral therapy certification. We set those up all very separately and distinctly.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I can give that to them, and then I can also refer to the meeting minutes from this point forward. All right, sorry. Yeah, I mean, all we got left is A, so.
I think an issue is obviously how protected our terminology is, and in particular, and how it came up is that there was an existing school, on Oahu, who was producing health providers under the guise of being naturopaths. And I think when this was brought up, there was some question of whether the board actually had authority to tell them to cease and desist from in any way suggesting that their program would have the outcome of somebody being able to refer themselves with any terminology that closely or in any way is related to the term naturopathic doctor, naturopathic practitioner, naturopathy, any of those terms. I think you had a question about whether there was authority. I think most of us, if I could speak for us, please correct me, but certainly as state president over a 6-year period, we didn't hesitate to go after anyone who in any way gave the impression that they were practicing naturopathic medicine or identifying themselves with terminology that should be solely used by a certified and licensed doctor. So the question is, does the board, do we have the authority in the case of the school to tell them, or to actually, I guess the correct procedure obviously is to go to RICO and have them investigate. That's what we've previously done, and it's turned out in our favor. Through, again, the HSMP, we've done that. In some cases, we've, gone to somebody directly.
Okay. Well, I mean, generally speaking, anybody has the capability of submitting a complaint. The board itself obviously can submit complaints as well. Is there anything to add on that, Chris? Yeah. So I mean, whether or not it's a part of the board's authority, I think is kind of like irrelevant. It's about like if there's a violation happening in the state, then anybody can submit a complaint.
Well, I think
So
that's
the question is, I guess, again, back to the terms. And so I think at the last meeting you were stating if there'd be something more than like kind of like better percentage of success as far as enforcing that chapter when just that term by itself is used. I think that you guys have been alluding to that during the meeting minutes discussion just ahead of this conversation. And then also you could probably make it more clear now. I mean, it appears to me that is the board leaning towards using the term naturopathic as a core term that despite being tied to a term like physician, practitioner, doctor, etc., whether those terms are used by NDs or not, that term naturopathic is so closely related to your practice that it would absolutely confuse the public if it was used in any unlicensed practice or endeavors.
Well, I think and I'm going to let my other colleagues here speak, but I would add to that, I think we all agree the answer simply is yes. But the other part of that is you use the term violation. And I think this is where we got stuck, because you were implying or you were questioning whether this school was in violation, based on what they're using. So even though, again, as you're clarifying, anyone can bring a complaint to RICO, that complaint would be based on an interpretation of violation, which again, not to speak solely for my colleagues, but I think we're all in agreement that there's a violation in the way that you just described it. Yes, we're very protective of anything related to the term naturopathic.
Okay.
Kristen, Corinne, anything you want to add or input or disagree with?
I agree.
Sure. Yeah, this is Dr. Cole.
And just to iterate, when I bring up questions, they're like devil's advocate questions. They're questions that I am predicting that will be asked in proceedings, because somebody's not just going to roll over and say, oh, okay, I won't do that. They're probably going to challenge as well. So I'm just bringing these up as considerations so that we can clarify and ensure that that's what the board wants, but also what the board has interpreted, and that this is a continuation of nothing different. And if that's the case, then that's fine. I just only bringing it up. It's in the meeting minutes, and that's partly the reason why.
No, I totally appreciate it. I think you do a magnificent job of keeping us on our toes and keeping us honest relative to statutes and laws and rules. And so, yeah, it goes without saying that it's most appreciated at your skill at providing that insight. I'm sorry, Dr. Coles, you wanted to input?
Sure. I would just say I'm in agreement with Dr. Kern. In a state that licenses doctors who are trained in naturopathic medicine, anything associated with the term naturopathic should be protected under the license, because that is why we're licensed in a state. That's why we have a board of naturopathic medicine, to make sure that anyone in the public who is seeking naturopathic care is not going to be confused or bamboozled by individuals who use a term naturopathic but are not medically trained, clinically trained the way we are, and could be put at risk for something that someone is doing that is not trained as a medical provider the way that licensed naturopathic doctors are. That's why we have a license in the state the way that we do. So I think any iteration of the term naturopathic should be expected to be protected.
I agree with you, Dr. Coles. And furthermore, to just elaborate on that, it is a big issue in states where there is no licensure process for naturopathic doctors, that there are people who have certifications, in naturopathic holistic care, and they use the term broadly and loosely all over the place as a holistic provider or a naturopath provider or a certified naturopath. And there are many online courses that people can do that would give them a certification, a naturopathic certification. And so part of that too is also just making it clear that someone who maybe comes from a different state where there is no licensure laws, moving to Hawaii, they can no longer use that term for themselves anymore if they want to keep practicing the way they were in an unlicensed state.
Yes, and actually, to continue to add on with that, at a recent meeting of FNMRA, this is the National Association of Regulatory Boards of Naturopathic Medicine. It was brought up that in a Western state that's very long, they have they have a protected license for naturopathic physicians as well, but the enormity of the state and the rapidness with which this is happening, they really have been inundated by people who are doing unlicensed practice. So even in states that have licensed practice clear, depending on their reach as far as regulatory reach, whether they could handle, like you said, Dr. DeSoto, these like almost online certifications of insignificance being utilized by people here. And so that is something on the regulatory side that has also been of note lately with naturopathic medicine.
Oh, I would like to make a comment. This is Joy Kimura. I would like to say that as a member representing the public, I can honestly say that that term would be very confusing to a member of the public who is actually looking for a licensed naturopathic doctor. We wouldn't know just on face value that that person who says they're a naturopathic practitioner is actually not licensed or educated like a naturopathic physician. So I think that we should strongly oppose any title in any way, shape, or form that would be confusing to the public, because it's a matter of public safety.
Thank you, Joy. Any other thoughts? Any other comments? Any other efforts, actually? Is there, in fact, anything further that the board needs to do with regard to the existing statute?
Hi, Mr. Curran.
Christopher, please, yeah.
So, interestingly enough, doing the research, I mean, one thing you always find when it comes to the sections that have to do with protecting either the practice, titles, etc., each chapter is going to be written differently. Sometimes it's written on a different philosophy of how the sections work together. Sometimes it's just literally the content. But naturopathic physicians chapter has a definition of naturopathic medicine. In this definition is also defined the practice of naturopathic medicine. So it's doing a little bit of, in what I can read, double time, because there is no section that talks about the practice of naturopathic medicine outside of that. There is a section obviously on protected terms in the rules, and etc. But when looking at the section 1 of the dentistry chapter, it's a very, for me, in my opinion, a very well written section, because not only does it include a definition of the practice, it also includes the exemptions to that practice. Typically, sometimes the exemption section can be separate. But the good thing about this is that you have on the same page, you have what is the practice and what is exempted from that. I find that very clean, but it's not just housed within a definition like naturopathic medicine or naturopathic physicians chapter does. The other thing to consider is that they have most of their language all in the statute, and it seems naturopathic split statute, and then there's also a lot of work being done in the rules as far as like title, like 7.5 of the section 7.5 of the rules for naturopathic being the title section. These are just things that I observed. How that relates to how successful chapters run or not, I don't have any knowledge on that. I just made these observations of a piecemeal chapter and relationship to the rules, and then something that houses things a little bit better into one section, which would be like dentistry, that's kind of the information I provide. We've already talked a little bit about the rules. Most of the titles that are we'll use the term protected is in the administrative rules for naturopathic physicians. So the board can start a process of rule amendment if you would wish to include further terms, for example. Any other thing, you could just go the other route and create a better chapter section if you wish, and then try and have that introduced. But there are options as far as updates to what titles can and cannot be used. Also, if there's any changes to the practice of naturopathic medicine, you could also do that, but that would be a legislative change. So with that, the board has some authority to change the rules, or it can, start to look into pursuing more legislative changes.
For what it's worth, over the course of the 16 years, of which I've been fortunate to be on the board, the issues of terminology or the issues as it relates to the rules from which we've been speaking have not come up in ways that have generated conflict or confusion. So I don't know if that falls under the category, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think it depends a little bit on the energy and the vitality of whether there's a need out of this discussion to update. I think some part of the conversation, again, was initiated out of a question of how comprehensive the terminology, related to naturopathic medicine, as Dr. Coles was speaking to, how comprehensive it is, and if it suits our needs in terms of anyone attempting to exploit, the terms through any kind of schooling or, certification. Again, in my experience, it hasn't been an issue, and I think it's been felt as this issue has come up ever so slightly in years past, that what is currently written essentially covers, I think, the concerns that Dr. DeSoto, Dr. Coles, and myself have, and Joy as well as a public member. So unless anyone feels differently or feels the need to update the rules and the terminology, please feel free to add or to amend anything that I'm suggesting here.
I have a question. This is Joy. Is it possible for us to request RICO to do an investigation on that school?
To the best of my knowledge, again, I think if the approach would be, I think, to go through RICO if we have a complaint, and if we believe that they're violating this elements of the conversation that we're having, and then RICO would investigate and turn that into their report to the proper authorities, and then whether the board would be involved in making any further or be any further involved. Did I describe that correctly, Chris, or anything else you would say, or Christopher, to correct that?
Sounds great. Yeah, no, that sounds right to me. Like Christopher was saying earlier, anybody, the board included, can make a complaint to RICO about any, licensed or unlicensed person or entity in your field. And RICO does its investigation. They do what they do. And if that turns into a case that, and this one I'm not actually sure it would come to the board, right? Because we're talking about, we are not talking about a licensed ND. Right?
Correct.
So,
yeah. Right.
So, if RICO does pursue that, they would actually take care of that on their own. If it turns into a case, I get brought against an unlicensed, person or entity to, the term is to enjoin them, right? To, get them to stop doing whatever they're doing. They would actually just take care of that themselves. And so that wouldn't come through the board. But RICO does have the authority to do that.
Sorry, does that answer your question, Joy? Okay.
Any other thoughts, any other comments then at this time?
I guess my only question, this is Dr. DeSoto, is after listening to everybody's explanation, I like what you had to say, Christopher, about how it's much more clean if everything is just written out initially in the chapter. But that sounds like a cumbersome process for us to change. And then Dr. Kearns stated that, well, maybe the way it is good enough because it's functioned in the past when there have been complaints. So I'm not totally clear on whether we need to do anything or if it's enough to just add a rule to expand a little bit to say naturopathic blank is not allowed.
Right. Well, I mean, again, the board can continue this discussion. I mean, both those changes are going to require a lot of work. So, I mean, whether it's a statutory or a rule change, so, you know, it doesn't have to be determined today. But as far as the RICO complaints and stuff, that's clarified, right? So yeah, you guys, we can continue the conversation about admin rule amendments and statutory amendments, of
Ju-
course, as needed.
Just to be clear, so a rule change would be like that's just something we do internally ourselves in the board, or that would also have to go to like the administrative package like we were discussing before.
Well, actually, it's a little bit different, but you're on the right track. So at first, it's initially started internally. So the board would start working on draft rules, how they would want it to look. Once you have a final draft and the board votes on it, from that point forward, it then goes on to a approval process. So it has to get vetted by all these different agencies and entities. And then the end product would be the implementation of the admin rules if they're approved. So through that process, but it doesn't have to go to the legislature.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So again, in clarifying maybe the sloppy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind thing. It could also be maybe describe that if there's an effort to put forth a complaint through RICO, and if at any point, as we've had RICO involved previously in issues that were resolved satisfactorily to our profession, similarly here, if for some reason a complaint is not corrected to our satisfaction based on some limitation in the rule, then maybe that might be a motivation to change it. But I think as it exists, it has served us previously, and I see no reason why it wouldn't, serve us again. I think, again, bottom line is, in the past, in my experience, even beyond the board's time, so we'll say in the excess of 25 years, if there has been any effort of anyone to imply themselves as being associated with naturopathic medicine, as a practitioner, however they identify themselves, that is and has been dealt with as in violation of our rules. And I see no reason why that shouldn't continue as it's currently written. Okay.
One last thing. So
Please.
just since we've talked about, can we submit a complaint to RICO? How do we do that? Does one of us just have to do it? Or do we say as a board, this is what we want to do, and then Christopher, you do it for us? Or how does that happen?
Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily go through the board at a board meeting, but like I'm always looking for things as well. But yeah, the board can, through me, I can send the referral.
Normally, and again, please correct me, but generally there's a motion to put Christopher into action, if I'm correct, meaning that if it is the board's will and decision to request Christopher as our executive officer to file a complaint on behalf of the board, then I believe a motion would be indicated. And if that's the case, is there someone who would like to put forth that motion as I just stated?
This is Dr. Coles. I would move to pursue RICO for this matter.
And is there a second, please? And Joy Kimura showed a wave, and An oral confirmation is second. Thank you.
Yes, I'll second. Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Thank you.
It's okay.
So in voting now, if voting in favor, please say yay or nay in requesting of our executive officer, Christopher, to file with RICO a complaint regarding the school's use of any terminology related to naturopathic medicine or implying that graduates are able to graduate from the school with any form of certification, implying them able to be referred as naturopathic practitioners. In favor or nay, Dr. Kristen Coles,
Yes.
Dr. Corinne DeSoto,
Yes.
Ms. Joy Kimura,
Yes.
and the chair, Dr. David Kern, yes. So moved.
Oh, Dr. Kern,
Please.
may I just make a
Yeah.
comment? This is Joy. I just wanted to just put it out there that, and we don't have to discuss it in depth today, but I was made aware that there's also something called functional medicine, and people are referring to themselves as functional medicine practitioners. And from what I understood, they are kind of like pretending to be naturopathic physicians. So I just wanted to let you guys know that there's something like that going on outside as well.
Joy,
Oh,
Joy, do you consider that to be a perhaps, I mean, I'm not going to say they, you know for certain or not, but a way of skirting around titles?
Well, of course. So my role as a public member is to represent the public. So for example, I wouldn't know as a member of the public if I see something advertised as a naturopathic practitioner, I'm going to think that this person has, gone through appropriate schooling and is considered like a naturopathic doctor. If someone says they're a functional medicine practitioner or a functional medicine doctor and they, um, you know, work with holistic remedies, I'm going to also have that impression that these people are, have the proper licenses and educational background. Because as a member of the public, you just read it and most people just assume that they have the proper credentials. It's misleading, I think, for the general public.
I'll give you a little history, Joy, of the evolution of the term. So one of the brightest voices in holistic medicine is a biochemist by training who spent some time with Linus Pauling at the Linus Pauling Institute, and was one of our earliest mentors when I was in naturopathic school in the 70s. His name is Jeffrey Bland. And Jeffrey Bland, in his lectures, essentially laid out naturopathic medicine through a highly articulate series of conversations and workshops that eventually began using the term functional medicine. And so functional medicine is actually a term that was given and taken by medical doctors, to which all of us, at least the people I know, understand that functional medicine refers to medical doctors who are practicing naturopathic medicine, but rather than call themselves naturopaths, they call themselves functional doctors. Now, doctors, mostly medical doctors, are taking on the terminology. Many of them are certified through Dr. Bland's seminar series, and they become, certified. And they're medical doctors who are progressive, more preventative in their approach, more holistic in their approach. And interestingly, as it's turned around, there are naturopaths who believe that they can get more mileage out of just referring to themselves as a naturopath, but actually referring to themselves as certified as functional doctors. So the term functional doctor or practitioner has taken on its own role and meaning, and probably may have a higher marketing profile in holistic health, preventative medicine than the term naturopathic. So while it overlaps, and for many of us, myself included, functional medicine, it's actually naturopathic medicine called functional medicine for the sake of medical doctors. I appreciate your confusion and how it could be misleading, but it is its own entity. And based on our conversation here on terminology, certainly functional is not in any way protected by naturopathic doctors.
Well, thank you for that clarification.
And we still love Dr. Bland. He's still a great guy, but he did create this whole, and in all honesty, I say it's about naturopathic medicine for medical doctors, but it expands, it does other things, but it basically, it's, yeah, it's naturopathic medicine. It's called functional medicine for doctors.
Everybody wants what we have.
Everybody wants what we have.
So does an NMD do functional medicine?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just.
Yeah. And like I said, there are plenty of naturopathic doctors that also I've seen identified as functional doctors. They think the certification or the indication has a higher marketing value. Anyway, we should move on. Time is getting on. Our next item is applications. I don't think there's a need to go in any executive session at this point. Correct me, Christopher, if I'm wrong, but any issues at which the board needs to be aware of?
As far as the two courses that are being requested to
Oh.
be approved, nothing has changed.
I'm
Dr.
sorry.
Osborne-
Yeah.
Dr. Osborne supplied basically the same applications she always does. The instructors are the same. So in that respect, there's nothing different about these two courses. She did include a signed letter or a letter requesting from IVNTP that approvals be for 2 years or something
Yes.
like that along those lines. But I'm afraid that the rules are restrictive in a sense because and when I first came on, I remember we kind of tried to go over this, and it was found that because it states that the course itself needs to be approved, that it couldn't cover multiple courses like facilitations. It had to be that specific facilitation, and that is why we put them on by date and place. My recommendation is the board should not approve anything other than just that course that is submitted for the. And unfortunately, I hear Dr. Osborne's explanation, but unfortunately, right now, even though she's the only one who submits the non-school course provider applications, there could be other people as well that would be open then to not being approved per course.
I would agree with you, and I think Dr. Coles has been involved in these conversations about Dr. Osborne, and so Dr. Soto, only just to bring you up to date, or Joy for that matter too. Virginia, has applied over a number of years and has gone through the certification process and written out all the requirements that the state requires, to the point that we've been able to provide her board approval, for her courses. And as Christopher just pointed out, as you saw perhaps in your packet, your files, that she's requesting just approval for 2 additional courses, albeit it looks like one has already taken place. but the one in I think San Diego is coming up in July. And then the other part of that, as Christopher pointed out, was this 2-year coverage that I think he's appropriately questioning within the state. So, you know, if anyone is in disagreement with regard to the 2-year certification process, but otherwise, you know, supports Dr. Osborne's applications, you know, please speak up, or if you have any questions regarding the issue, please comment if you'd like.
This is Dr. Coles. I do recall we've had discussions at some point in the past about this and how if we were to do anything different, it would take something like a rule change, and I don't think that as a board that's something we should do. I think unfortunately we just have to let her know that the way that the rules are, it has to continue to be done the way she's doing it.
I could add something additionally. Sorry. Chris, would it be possible for the board to give a delegation to me at this meeting, or would it had to have been posted on the agenda?
Oh, well, for the delegation, I think you want to put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So not this meeting, but in a future meeting, I could offer that the board could vote to provide me a delegated authority to approve these applications, so long as nothing has changed from the last time the board itself approved an application. So as long as the instructors are the same, as long as all of the hours and everything are exactly the same, basically that form needs to look exactly like the one that was approved by the board. If it looks that way, then you could delegate that authority to me, so then it doesn't have to happen at a meeting. But if anything changes on that application form, then it would have to come to a meeting. So you can maybe think of that for the next meeting. I can add that to the agenda if you would like to add that or consider that as that delegation.
Definitely, please do.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I guess then you guys are on to approval of these courses.
So we would again receive a motion here. So is there a motion? And do we, I mean, we can, they both courses, we don't have to separate them, right? Is there a motion to approve Dr. Osborne's application for her parenteral therapy courses as have previously been listed?
This is Dr.
Dr.
Soto,
Soto?
and I motion to approve those courses.
Is there a second, please?
Dr. Coles, I second.
As the motion has been moved and seconded, those in favor, please say aye or nay if you oppose. Dr. Kristen Coles,
Yes.
Dr. Corinne DeSoto,
Yes.
Ms. Joy Kimura,
Yes.
and I as chair, Dr. David Kern, approve. So I think the effort to oust me has been postponed. Is that correct?
No. No, so
Are we going to do the elections next meeting, or we're going to do them this meeting?
you can do them this meeting. It just
Okay.
my understanding would be that we wouldn't have to do this in the July meeting. I believe that you're good on the board, Dr. Kern, until August.
Okay.
But I thought just in case that meeting is canceled or something like that in July, that it'd be best to take care of the elections now at this meeting and not just at the last one.
That's a good idea. I thought it was the end of June, but yeah.
Oh, maybe it is. I have to double check, but I'm pretty, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, in any event, just to clarify if there's any questions, so my term limits are coming to a close, either June or August, or sooner, as the case may be. But in any event, annually we choose new officers. And so we have, starting with the new chair, any requests for nomination of a new chair? I would like to open that nomination in suggesting that Dr. Kristen Coles be selected as our new chair. Are there any other nominations?
Well, I would like to second the nomination.
Okay.
Okay. I want to make sure if anyone else wants to make any other nominations, to be clear, give everyone a chance. Okay.
I third the nomination.
Okay. Okay, so Dr. Coles has been nominated for our new chair. We'll take a vote now. If in favor, say yay. If opposed, nay. Dr. Corinne DeSoto,
Yay.
Ms. Joy Kimura,
Yay.
and I as chair, Dr. David Kern, yay. And Dr. Kristen Coles.
Well, I will reluctantly accept only because your term limits are expiring. David, I mean, I'm so appreciative to have sat on the board with you for 6 years so far, and I would be grateful if you had longer on the board for your knowledge and everything you bring to it, but I will accept that and work my hardest to fill your shoes.
Do you vote for yourself though, Chair?
Oh, do I? Well, I guess I reluctantly vote for myself. Yes.
Okay, there we go. Last vote. There we go. There you go, Chair.
Okay, thank you for those kind words, but please don't add those to the notes. We'll keep it personal. And I'm actually a phone call away. So with that, Dr. Coles, congratulations. Let me be the first to congratulate you. Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if need be. We'll now open nominations for the vice chair. Again, I would like to make a motion for Dr. Corinne DeSoto as our vice chair. Is there a second?
I'll
Well,
second.
Okay.
It's just
Any
Joy,
other
I'll second.
nominations for vice chair?
No, I will third that.
We're actually one body with three heads, is what it actually comes down to. All right. We will then vote, and we'll start with Dr. Kristen Coles on vice chair for Dr. DeSoto. Your vote.
Yes.
Ms. Joy Kimura
Yes.
and I, Dr. Kern, vote yes. And Dr. DeSoto, your vote.
I vote yes. I'm very
Thank you.
thankful to have everybody else taking charge and I can continue to learn and play a supportive role.
Yes, thank you so very, very much. I'm thrilled to have such an incredible group of colleagues, in addition to Joy's add to this group. I feel we're in exceptionally good hands. The level of professionalism, competence, intelligence, articulation is exceptional. So congratulations to our new chair and to our vice chair. Our next meeting is scheduled currently for July 26th. Before we do adjourn, depending on the circumstances of next meeting, in addition, and I think it's evident today, again, over 2 8-year terms and 16 years on the board, I've been with about, I don't know, 4 or 5 executive officers, a couple of deputy attorney generals, with Rod Tan being one of those for so many, many years. We've been fortunate as a group, as a board, to have such competent, dedicated people working with us, and no more so than Christopher. It is amazing to me knowing that in the time that we've been together, he's added to his family, doubled up on it, and yet I will still get an email response unexpectedly at 11 o'clock or midnight. This morning, I got a response at 5 o'clock in the morning. So the fact that we actually have an executive officer who doesn't sleep, I think, is just incredible. And to be as alert and well-versed in the Robert's Rules of Order, who is on top of being able to explain the complexities of administrative rules and all that goes into the legislative process. We are and have been exceptionally fortunate. Additionally, for Chris, who backs us up through his knowledge of the law and facilitates and supports us. Unfortunately, because I haven't been able to be in Honolulu, I don't know the rest of the staff and all the people who are also part of the scene. I just want to extend certainly my appreciation personally, but on behalf of our profession, just thank you for your commitment and participation, and even just the learning about what naturopathic medicine is a task unto itself. And you've all done such an exceptional job. So thank you all, with great appreciation from all of us. And we'll hopefully see each other on July 26th at 2 o'clock or 2:05 or 2:10. Whatever works for you. Okay, I'll sign out. Okay, aloha, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha. Aloha.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
David. Bye.